As soon as he thought about being repeatedly tortured by Roswitha like on countless nights before, Leon felt his body and mind quietly begin to shatter. For him, this was destined to be another long and arduous night. With Roswitha by his side, time slowly passed from evening into morning. Leon was quite displeased with Roswitha's extra homework assignment. He spoke to her with noticeable irritation in his voice. "Miss Malkevi, you are truly a homework maniac." Roswitha paid no attention to his complaints. If he's been able to do it before, he'll be able to do the extra homework he's being given tonight. She closed her eyes and said to Leon with a smile, "No more excuses, Leon. Pull yourself together and get ready to pull an all-nighter on this homework." Outside the Silver Dragon Castle, the sun gradually rose and illuminated the dim sky. After a night of Leon taking her seriously, Rosa felt that her body and mind had been thoroughly purified. The previously negative emotions had been completely washed away. Her skin had become much whiter than before and even more elastic. She closed her eyes and gave a satisfied smile. Crossing her hands in front of her chest, she walked to the gate of Silver Dragon Castle in a very good mood. Her mental state had improved a lot compared to the night before, and even her temperament seemed somewhat different. It seemed she was very satisfied with the homework and additional services submitted to her by Leon. However, Leon, walking beside her, stood in stark contrast. He had dark circles under his eyes and no trace of a smile on his face. Although he walked at the front, his steps were unsteady, as if he might collapse at any moment. It was clear his mental state was in very poor shape. Dragging his exhausted body, Leon finally reached the gate of the Silver Dragon Castle. Noah and Muan looked up and saw Leon in a very poor mental state. They were very curious about this. Noah asked in confusion, "Why do you look like you haven't slept all night?" At this moment, Moon found Leon's appearance very interesting. She raised her hand and pointed at Leon's dark circles under his eyes, laughing heartily. "Ha! Dad's dark circles are really dark because he couldn't rest well all night." Leon felt his head spin, but he could still hear what Noah and Muan were saying clearly. Upon hearing what Muan said, he calmly pointed to his dark circles under his eyes and explained to them, I stayed up too late doing homework. Leon is already an adult and doesn't have to go to school, so there shouldn't be anyone assigning him homework." Moon was a bit confused by Leon's answer. She raised her hand and tapped her chin, then lifted her head and pondered for a moment. "Do adults also have homework?" In order to prevent Noah and Moon from knowing what happened to them last night, Roswitha came up with another explanation for them. She said to them with a smile, "Children have homework for children. Of course, adults also have homework for adults." Noah and Muan lifted their heads together and looked at Rosita, momentarily speechless. They still didn't quite understand what she was saying. After exchanging a glance, they both fell into deep thought. Just then, Muan seemed to have an idea. She perked up, raised her hand excitedly, and shared her thoughts. Muan had discovered a curious pattern. Whenever Mom was in good condition, Dad would become very weak, and whenever Dad was doing well, Mom would suddenly become very weak. Am I right? While explaining to Leon and Rosita, Muan excitedly pointed at them with her finger. Leon and Rosita were both surprised by her discovery. They hadn't expected Muan to figure out their physical condition based on their mental state. Leon, impressed by her sharp observation skills, reached out and gently patted Muan's head, offering her a faint smile. He said to Muan, "Good girl, you are so clever." Although Leon and Rosita hadn't told Muan what had happened between them, Leon couldn't help but admire her keen observation. Silently, he thought to himself, she easily saw through the truth that ordinary people couldn't discover. Upon hearing Leon's praise, Muan was overjoyed. She looked up at him with a bright smile, her tail wagging excitedly. Standing behind her, Leon took a protective stance, raising his hand and gazing ahead with determination in his eyes. "If anyone says you're only cute in the future, Dad will be the first to fight with him." Moon stood proudly in front of Leon, hands on her hips, wearing a cheerful expression. She looked ahead with determination, mirroring Leon's gaze. Just then, Noah heard a sound coming from the sky. She tilted her head upward, eyes fixed on a distant point. "Oh, it's here," she said. It was Leviathan, the school bus that came to take her to school. With massive wings beating steadily, it flew toward them, letting out a cry as if to announce its arrival at the castle gate. Moments later, Leviathan hovered above them, waiting for Noah to board. Seeing it approach, Noah turned around, grasped one strap of her backpack, and waved with her free hand. With calm composure, she bid farewell to Rosita and Mune. "Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Mune." Rosita nodded, indicating that Noah could leave. She gently held Mune's hand with one hand and waved her other hand toward Noah. She smiled and said goodbye to her. "Take care on your way." Although Moon couldn't bear to see Noah leave, she still waved happily at her and hoped she could come home soon. "Noah, come back quickly and play with Moon. When you're not around, Moon will miss you." Although Leon was still a bit dazed, he also showed a faint smile and encouraged her. "Study hard. See you next weekend." Upon hearing what Leon said to her, Noah felt a bit shy. She still dared not take the initiative to say goodbye to Leon. However, she turned around to face him and nodded, which could be considered as accepting Leon's encouragement. "I'm leaving." With those words, Leviathan unleashed a burst of blue magical energy toward the ground. The light swirled around Noah, gently lifting her off her feet. In a smooth motion, the great creature carried her into the carriage on its back. Once she was safely aboard, Leviathan beat its massive wings, turned mid-air, and soared into the distance. There were still more students to collect before the school day began. Leon and Rosita watched silently, heads tilted upward, as the dragon-like beast faded into the sky. Wanting Moon to see it clearly, Leon picked her up in his arms. She waved enthusiastically and called out, "Goodbye, Noah. Goodbye, big dragon." After Leviathan vanished, Leon looked down at Moon with a gentle smile and asked, "So after sending Noah to school, what are we going to do today?" Moon didn't respond right away. She tapped her chin thoughtfully and tilted her head, lost in silent reflection. "Dad always looks weak, and Mom seems worried," she thought. Moon had begun to notice how often Leon seemed tired or distant. If things continued this way, she feared his health would suffer. A quiet resolve grew inside her. She glanced up at Leon with determination. "Noah is not here. I want to urge Dad to exercise and become stronger." Leon, noticing her intense expression, blinked in confusion. Before he could ask, Moon hopped down from his arms, grabbed his hand, and tugged him forward with excitement. "Dad, let's go for a run at the training ground today." Leon was surprised but didn't resist. He wasn't sure what had sparked this idea in her, but he nodded anyway. "Oh, okay." From behind, Rosita watched them go. A slight smile touched her lips as she thought to herself, "It seems quite interesting."